Hello and welcome to Prog and Progeny. How are you today, Dad?
I'm very well. I was going to ask you what you've been up to, but I'm not really that interested. So let's just get on with the podcast. How was that?
You're so annoying. Yeah, fine. Fuck you. Okay, today we've got a very special episode because we had Simon Hanhart, who was the sound engineer on the first two Marillion albums, and it was a really good chat. He was really lovely. What did you think?
He
was.
Of it? I've not spoken to Simon for years. He was also the engineer on Real to Real as well. Which was the live album we did after Fugazi. We had a really interesting chat. In fact, I have to apologise because poor Tallulah couldn't get a word in edgeways because those two old geezers were just reminiscing about the past and all the great times we had. But it was real fun to see Simon again.
It was, all in all, I think, a 2.5 hour chat. So it is a slightly longer episode. We've managed to condense it down into an hour.
So we're not going to include the book reading this week. This interview kind of catches up with where we are in the book, which is good anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a recap of the last previous chapters that we've done, but from Simon's perspective, and he brings lots of interesting stories that Dad may have not remembered, funny stories, but also there's some serious conversations. It was a really good chat, worth listening to, I think. I enjoyed being there, even though I couldn't get a word in edgeways. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so without further ado, here is Simon. Welcome, Simon.
Hello, Mark.
Really good to see you.
Good to see you too. When did we last see each other? I can't remember. Oswestry. Do you remember you did Unplugged at Oswestry? 20 years ago or something ridiculous? I don't know.
And I have to say, I mean, I'm sure people tell you this all the time because it's true. You haven't changed. You look like... He doesn't look
you're very
the same age as me. How old are you? Schoolboy Simon.
66. But this is not to go in the... It's an industry secret, so there's not to go in the...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So... what I'm interested in, which you probably told us this years ago, but how did you get into the music industry and what did you do before we met you?
I was always into music and I played in bands very badly. We never really did anything, but loads of members kind of passed through and they've all gone on to quite memorable things. There was Neil Carter, who is a guitarist. He played with Gary Moore and UFO. He was involved in this same outfit. And then there's Phil Lanzon, who is now Uriah Heep's keyboard player. Jamie Moses, who went on to play with Queen. When I first left school, it's what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a player initially, you know. I ended up I was in like a show band doing club dates and everything, you know, second on the bill to the male stripper, you know. And then I did 6 months of that. And then I kind of got involved with this band who kind of got some record company interest. And that was the situation where all these players kind of came through, you know. And there was a point where I thought, you know, I'm never going to be an amazing player. This isn't just going to work. So I should really think about trying to carve my own direction. And I always...
What did you play?
Guitar.
Guitar, okay.
Yeah. Through this situation with the band, we were actually living at Surrey Sound Studios. Phil Harding, who was working at the Marquee Studios, he came down to the studio to engineer some sessions that I was doing with this band. And I kind of struck up a little bit of relationship with him. And when I realised that, you know, I was 19 and it wasn't really happening, and I thought, you know, I better do something that I'm in control of. So I decided to apply to a few studios, and one of the studios was Marquee, and I got in touch with Phil and said, I'm going to apply for a job there as a T-boy. Could you put a nice word in for me? And I got the gig there, you know. That was the end of 78. It was a few weeks just before my 20th birthday. Nowadays, if you want to get a job in a studio, you know, Abbey Road and Air, you have to have a Tonmeister degree from Surrey, you know, and they only want people who've been through the whole university mill. But in those days, if you could make a cup of tea and you were willing to have the shit kicked out of you, you know, you were in, sort of thing. You know, basically you were there, and you could just kind of work your way up through the ranks. And that's what
Well, there's that story, isn't there, about flood and drought? You know that one?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Tallulah probably doesn't know it, that two assistant engineers, one of them was nicknamed Flood and the other one was nicknamed Drought. Flood was nicknamed that name because he was always there making cups of tea for everybody, and Drought never made any cups of tea. Everybody's heard of Flood, the producer, but Drought never got anywhere. They made the story up to scare new recruiting, lots of tea, you know.
And that's what it was all about.
It's quite funny though, because I reckon even if you go in with a uni degree, your first job will be making tea for everyone.
Absolutely. You know, you get these kids, you know, I'm doing sessions up at Abbey Road and Air all the time now. And, you know, you'll get a kid coming in who's done like a 3-year degree course, you know, and he's basically taking your sandwich order.
Yeah. No point. Yeah. Just go straight in.
Well, you know, I mean, I guess that getting a little bit of academic background is good, but it's no replacement for practical experience.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, especially in that industry.
Yeah. Do you remember an assistant called Mark Wade when we were doing Script? Because that flood drought thing was at Morgan Studios. Because he used to work there. He always said he was drought. He always told me he was drought. Okay. Whether that was true or not, I'm not sure. Because Flood went on to do great stuff, U2 and Sigur Rós and loads of stuff. Yeah. You know.
Well, we had an assistant engineer on Fugazi called Dave Megan. Do you remember him?
Dave, yeah. We'll come to that. Poor old Dave.
Yeah.
I always feel worried about Dave. You're right, mate. You know. Yeah, so I started at Marquee, and I did about 2.5 years of sort of assisting and working on good stuff. You know, there was nice things going on. Plus, you could record next door at the club, which was always great.
Which we did.
Which we did at that Christmas, yeah. And, you know, I was involved with early Iron Maiden recordings at the club and everything. When I say involved, I was the poor kid on the stage with the headphones on, you know, trying not to get in the way, you know. It was so formative for me. It was so exciting, you know, and...
So when did you hook up with Nick, and what was the first thing you did with him?
Nick started to come in and use the studio, and I was an assistant. Phil Harding was engineering for Nick. We did loads of little bits and pieces. Nick was getting a lot of work, and then he got the Toyah gig, and the first thing he did with, do you know Toyah? Tallulah, do you know Toyah?
I've become familiar with them recently.
Yes, I'm familiar with her work. Yeah.
The YouTube videos that Dad showed me.
Well, she was big news early part of the 80s. She'd been doing some very sort of alternative indie stuff with Steve James, who was Sid James' son. Yeah, she did 2 albums with him, and then they wanted to push her in a more pop direction, and Nick got the gig, and that's when they did It's a Mystery. And I was an assistant on that. And I was also doing other little bits and pieces on the side. Occasionally I'd get tiny little engineering gigs. And then Phil Harding had his own band, and they got some deal going. I don't know the details, but he went out to New York, and Nick had a whole bunch of stuff. He asked me to step in. And to be honest with you, you know, I hadn't really done anything. You know, I'd done little bits and pieces. I knew how the gear worked, but I had no real experience. I think Marillion was 6 months into that period. I think I'd done a couple of little gigs with Nick, and then the Marillion gig came up. And like all of us, you know, I was really finding my feet. When I came down to the venue at the end of...
So you were with Nick at that gig, were you?
Yeah.
Because I vaguely remember meeting Nick, because I think John Crawley introduced us to you both.
John Crawley at Charisma.
Charisma, yeah. Their offices were upstairs at the Marquee, weren't they?
That's right. Nick had got the gig, and he'd asked me to do it with him. Yeah. And it was a bit of a Damascene moment for me. You know, it was kind of like, right, you know, these guys are great. You know, this is going to be amazing. And I felt a real... affinity for what you were trying to do, because 3 or 4 years earlier, I'd kind of been trying to do the same thing unsuccessfully. It was an important moment for me, you know, so one of those milestone moments in your life.
It's interesting you say that, because for me, so it was all very new, and we were all very excited, and you know, and it was all like, you know, kids in a toy shop. We wanted to do everything and try everything, and what I got from you and Nick, I'm thinking about it now, I didn't realise it, but you know, you were both as excited about what we were doing.
It was quite something. I mean, I've got some really strong memories about those sessions.
Tell us some of them, because this is what I wanted to get you on for as well.
One of my main memories, which was incredibly exciting. You know, I mean, we worked like Trojans, didn't we? I mean, we pretty much worked every single day, and that's how it was with Nick. You know, you when you were on projects with him, you'd finish a project at 4 o'clock in the morning, last mix, put it down, go home, start the next one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because he was a bit crazy like that, and you can understand that. He was on a roll.
There was a certain amount of, what do they call it? Peruvian marching powder going down.
Yes.
Not with you, obviously. I've made it
never
clear
heard it
that
called that.
Somebody had to drive the bus, that was Simon.
Yeah. There's one of the nicest memories I remember. We were working and it was a Sunday, and we'd already finished He Knows, and it had been released, and we were all in the studio working on a Sunday. The single was out. We knew it was going to chart, and we all kind of piled into this little car that I had to listen to the radio. We didn't have a radio apart from in my car, and I think Pete. I remember Pete was in there, and maybe someone else had dived in. And then, the other guys were standing outside. We heard the chart countdown, and then I think it was, I don't know what it was, 15 or 14 or something like that. It had gone in, it's like, we're in the studio making the album, and the singles in the charts, and it's great.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. So we recorded and mixed He Knows, before we finished the album, just in order to get it out.
It was out, we did Charting the Single, do you remember, as the B-side?
I do remember doing that, and we kind of did that as like a quick turn it around in a few hours, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Just to have the B-side,
Yeah, so that was out. So, we were making the record. We knew it was going to get a profile because the single already was in the teens in the charts. And, it was just a really exciting moment. Yeah, it was just, this is fantastic, this is great.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the control room, and I was sitting at the desk, and you had your keyboard set up behind me. Remember, you had the emulator and the DX7, and maybe not the DX7, maybe that came...
Not the DX7, no, it would have been... what was it? Well, we had some hired keyboards. We'd hired a Mini Moog. I don't know how long we had it for, but we definitely hired one because I didn't own one at that point. And the emulator, the PPG, I think we hired the PPG as well. We ended up buying one of those.
PPG, yeah. You bought the emulator, though, didn't you?
That's right, yeah. Because it had a great church organ sound, which is what we used on Charting the Single. Yeah. Well, it wasn't good for much, but it had a nice string sound and a great church organ.
And you could see people throwing up, because that's another thing that happened, wasn't it?
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask if you remembered that. So Simon and Nick were always playing pranks on everybody. So the one I remember, probably because it was a prank you played on me, was the recording the piano intro for Script. And I'd never really played along to a click track, and you had a click track going for me to play it. And then as I was playing it, you very speeded the tape up. So it got faster and faster and faster. And I kind of hadn't really noticed that it was getting faster and faster. I came back into the control room to tell you that I was having trouble, and you and Nick were just falling about laughing.
You wouldn't be able to do that nowadays because studio time is so precious. It's just like... I don't know. But don't you remember Pete being told that we wanted to get the sound of somebody throwing up?
Vomiting, yeah. For He Knows, because it's a song about taking drugs, and I think the line in the song is singing psychedelic praises to the depths of a china bowl. And it was fish dropped acid and then went to work at the unemployment benefit office. That's what that lyric is about.
Right. Okay.
And so he said to Pete, that was me, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And his sound of somebody throwing up. Can you throw up in the toilet and we record it? Is that what he did? Yeah.
And he just went, sure.
Yeah, of course, he was totally up for it. Yeah, great idea, guys. I'll go and throw up. Yeah, I was I was completely green, tell you the truth, as well. So I was just kind of, that probably wouldn't have happened if you'd had Jerry Boys or someone sitting there who'd been engineering and producing for 30 odd years. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, we did get even more experimental with Fugazi, didn't we? I can remember one point. It was on Emerald Lies, did an argument in the song, and so we had this idea of having a sound of a bottle smashing or something. And we had about 20 different bottles in the studio drum room, in the live room. We were just smashing bottles all afternoon.
Well, I remember that being in Eel Pie Studio. But I remember them. There was like a conservatory area adjacent to the control room, and I remember somebody taking all the light bulbs out, and because they had all these light bulbs all the way around, taking them out and smashing all of those on the floor. It's just like
that was it.
Oh my God!
I mean, it was
just to record it, and then it didn't quite sound big enough.
Didn't sound right. No.
So we said, let's try sweeping the glass around the floor, see if that sounds good. It was just crazy stuff.
I remember you sitting behind me with your keyboards, and I was at the console. Nick wasn't in the room, and we were just trying to get a part together, or this, that, and the other. And we're sitting there trying to work a part out. And he came in. Do you remember they had the big double doors in front of the desk and everything through to the studio? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he came through the double doors, and he was so angry. He was like, "How long are you going to be working on this? What are you doing? Get this part done. How long until we get this finished?" And he was absolutely freaking out, and his flies were undone. It kind of took the edge off the anger.
Yeah.
I don't remember his part. I remember towards the end, we had a list of what needed to be done, because it was just trying to keep track of all the things we knew we had to do. And there'd be like a bit of vocal here. There'd be, you need to do that guitar part there, whatever. And then there was this list, and Nick, I think we were kind of trying to methodically work through the list to finish everything. And then I said, quite innocently, something like, there's one more thing I've just remembered that we need to do. It just completely exploded, and out of all proportion to what I just said, that was
he could be quite angry. That period, for whatever reason, like I know in your podcast you said it was like he didn't want to go home, and he would just be working non-stop. And literally, I think around that time, I did about 6 months straight without a day off. It was just absolutely relentless.
Yeah, he did have a fierce work ethic in that sense. But the final straw was the Who Wants to Work on Christmas Day. That was the...
Yeah, that happened several times, not just on yours. We'd work right up to the last minute on Christmas Eve, and then eventually be allowed to go.
Someone pulled the rest of us to one side and said, "You have to say no. Because if any of you agree to it, I've got to do it as well."
I don't remember. Did I do that? I can't remember that.
Yeah.
Script was a good thing. Do you remember Steve Hackett coming in from the club to listen to We Got Forgotten Sons fairly close to being finished? I remember Steve Hackett coming into the studio to have a playback of...
I remember Toya coming in one day and being a bit starstruck, because she was like the first pop star I'd ever met. I wasn't a fan of it, but instantly recognisable. She had this bright orange red hair, didn't she? And
she was big news.
But she was nice to us, She was all friendly and
But I remember you guys being great, and I kind of, whether it was just me being 22 or 3 or whatever I was, I felt I was in the fold. I was part of the gang. It wasn't just like a gig. I was sort of instrumental in the whole thing as well. And it was a really important, formative time for me. Very exciting.
Yeah, I remember Nick always used to say, "And what do you think, Si?"
Well, you remember. If you remember, you could stand over the far side of the desk. On occasion, I'd be over there. I'd be doing an edit or something, and there'd be a discussion in the room about what we were supposed to be doing. And Nick would sort of edge round and come and stand next to me and go, "What do you think? What do you think we should do?" And I'd say what I thought, and then he'd announce it to the room like it was his idea. It was, which was great. I mean, you must have got a little bit of the vibe that was kind of going on. Obviously Nick was carrying the administrative weight of the project. Really.
Well, that's the little phrase stuck in my head because he said it a lot. Put it like that. But he was quite. Yeah. What do you think, Si?
We did. When we did recital of the script. And you did Grendel, didn't you? That Grendel was one of the tunes. And for whatever reason, I was having to mix it in the middle of the night. You guys weren't there. So it was literally the middle of the night, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a 20-minute tune, isn't it, Grendel? And I'm mixing it.
17, yeah.
No one's in the control room with me. Nick is outside playing Pac-Man or sleeping or something, And I get it mixed, and I go and say, "Oh, I've done it. Come and have a listen." And I pressed the play button on the multi-track, and the track starts. And he's sitting next to me at the desk, and about 90 seconds in, his head goes down, and then the whole track plays through, and I'm kind of like watching him like this, and then the track stops, and his head comes up, and he goes, "Yeah, sounds great."
That's great advertisement for your music.
Yeah, but come on, it was 4 a.m. Everybody was so tired from, well, as you know what happened to David Hitchcock at the end of the Mark Square Heroes session, ended up in hospital in a car crash. We were saying about Dave Meagan, he ended up in hospital. That's why Simon said, poor Dave.
Yeah. Dave was...
How did he end up in hospital?
Exhaustion. He was in hospital for 3 days.
Physical exhaustion.
Yeah, we've not got onto that yet. Onto the Fugazi nightmare.
Sounds like you need HR on the case.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be able to do it now. The studios don't put their kids through it. It doesn't happen like that anymore. And that was rock and roll 80s, and you just went for it,
Yeah, so the tape op, as they call them, the assistant engineer is probably a nicer name rather than tape op.
Yeah.
They did a lot more than just operate the tape machine.
Yeah, he was great. Dave was fantastic.
One of the jobs that they had to do, as Simon, you probably remember, is lining up the machine at the beginning of the day, right? So they had to be there first before anybody else got there, and that's probably took, 20, 30 minutes to do that job?
Yes.
But then, of course, they'd be the last to finish as well. So they get the least amount of sleep out of everybody. By the end of that session, Dave was just physically exhausted. We worked with Dave again as our producer.
I know.
A number of times.
But he's doing something else now, isn't he? Isn't he an electrician now or something?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He kind of quit the music industry basically because he couldn't make a living and he had a family to support.
Right,
so bit of a loss to the world of music, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great guy. I've got a picture of him and all of us. I got a few pictures at Psalm West when we did Cinderella Search, all looking really knackered.
That was a good session. I enjoyed that session.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Script was good, and to be honest with you, Nick was great, and he did. He put me on a points for that record as well. So, we didn't need to do that, but he wanted to.
That was nice. Yeah.
I didn't necessarily get paid, but the intention was there. I got a few.
The thought was there.
Yeah, it's good thought. I got a few checks initially, and then it all kind of fell away. He got in touch with me end of last year and wanted me to do something for him, which I didn't do in the end. But I do intend to meet up with him because even though things were tricky on occasion, I owe a lot to Nick because he put me on the map really by giving me the gig and everything. He was a good mate, but he wasn't easy to work with always. It was all a very exciting time, and of course, then you were doing the gigs and you played Hammersmith, and
it was very exciting. Of course, by the time we got to the end of Fugazi, we didn't realise that things were not as secure as we thought they were because the album had cost so much to make, and we hadn't sold as many copies as we had of Script, which was kind of looking bad from the point of view of the record company.
But in between Script and Fugazi, we did those sessions with John Martyr, didn't we? Three Boats remake and
Market Square Heroes.
Market Square Heroes, and there was one other tune, wasn't there? We did an EP with John. I can't remember what the third tune was now.
I think it was just those two to try and put them out as a sort of reissue them as a new single with it was kind of a more modern sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Martyr didn't last that long.
I was the one who suggested John Martyr.
Was it? Okay, that's filled a gap in my knowledge then because I didn't know where we'd got him from, but it was a bit of an emergency. We need a drummer, and he came in as a kind of safe pair of hands that was competent, and that made sense.
I didn't really know that well, but he'd been working with Gus Dudgeon. He was in that band Voyager, and
he was in Mr. Big, wasn't he? In the mid-70s, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that band that had that hit single Romeo. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah, not the Mr.
My
Big
granddad told me about it.
Come on, it wasn't that long ago.
No, I do remember it, yeah. Yeah, so John came in. I didn't really know him that well, but I knew he'd worked with Gus, and I'd met him a few times. I knew he was a good player, and he seemed like a nice bloke. I thought he'd be a good fit, and that's why I kind of mentioned him, but obviously it didn't quite work out, did it, with John?
But I think because he'd had some success in the 70s, like with this, I checked, Romeo got to number 4, so it was a big hit single. He kind of came into the band with the attitude that we were like these novices, and he could teach us a thing or two, and it kind of didn't make any secret of what he thought about everything. I I could produce the band better than that. I could do this. I could do that. You know, it kind of got a bit old very quickly, and we decided that he wasn't the guy for us.
Yeah, in the book you said that the way that Fish fired him was going, all those who drum from the Marillion step forward. Where are you? Where do you think you're going, John?
That was a bit of poetic license, but it was pretty brutal. I think it was because he came to New York with us. We did the Radio City Music Hall gigs, 5 nights with him. Met Jonathan Mover, decided to have auditions for a new drummer. So we'd already decided that John Martin wasn't staying, but I don't think we'd told him. Jonathan Mover came and auditioned. We decided to offer him the gig. We were going to Germany the next day to do a radio recording, a radio show.
Right.
And we literally just said to him, "Oh, you're not coming. You're fired." So he thought he was coming to Germany with us, and the day later he wasn't. So that was why it was quite brutal. You know?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the harsh world of rock and roll, isn't it? You know.
Oh, that's what I'm learning.
Yeah, I don't think we were the only band that was like that.
No.
I think there's, you know, it's kind of just comes with the territory. I think you know, everybody wants to get on. There are some bands that start as a bunch of mates, and they never change. You know.
Yeah.
But
we all met each other because we wanted to make it in a band. So
yeah, that's right.
Anything that you think's going to help you make it in a band, even if it means firing one of your bandmates, then it's like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
And, well, I suppose as long as it's not you.
Yeah. And when you've got the record company on your back as well, you know, it's serious. You know, there's big investment, and you got to make sure that you keep the standard up and things are moving ahead as they're supposed to.
Yeah.
So was there any talk about getting a different drummer for Script with Mick? Because I know there was some. I don't know if you knew about anything like that. Because there was some push from the record company to replace Mick and Steve, actually, which is kind of crazy.
Really? I didn't know that.
By Hugh Stanley Clarke, yeah. And John Arneson basically said, "No, we're not doing that. Not before the first album. We're kind of settled, you know."
I didn't know anything about that at all. I remember coming down to rehearsal. Yeah. Nick was doing rehearsals with you, and I came down a day or a couple of days. Okay, off record. Have we said enough positive things about the Script sessions?
Yeah.
Have we? You know, because it was the 80s, you know, everyone was a bit crazy, you know, and I just want to make sure that it comes across as what it was, which was great. You know, you tend to focus on the mad bits, and it makes it sound.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when you, the things that kind of stick in your memory a lot are the crazy stuff. But the whole process and the whole recording of Script for me was really, really enjoyable. I could, you know.
Well, I loved being with you guys. It was. You know, we were a band of brothers. Well, I felt we were. You know, and it was fantastic. Yeah, it was a little bit tricky technically. Do you remember how we used to do the click tracks? You'd have the emulator out in the studio because there'd be all those breakdown sections in the web and Garden Party and stuff. Mick would play free, I think, as much as Mick would play free, and then you would do a count-in on the last bar with the emulator. You'd literally play a click from the emulator to give us a click track after that, to give us a meter during the breakdown when there was no drums involved, and you were doing it from the studio. You don't remember that? No.
That's
so I don't think
Mick
could play with a click in those days. So we just got a good performance, and I think we edited it around. And then
I do remember there was some editing of the drum tracks and you know, a lot of attempts to, you know, and also, I mean, it wasn't as smooth as somebody playing to a click would be. So recording overdubs on top of it was a case of learning where it was pushing and pulling slightly and just going with it, you know.
But the funny thing is, I mean, that's old school, you know. And the funny thing is, even though things aren't necessarily completely, you know, sample tight throughout, if everyone kind of goes with the ebb and flow of the drum track that's been recorded, it starts to have its own cohesion. And you know, I remember Pete standing in front of the desk doing his bass part, and you know, just kind of locking in with what had been played on the drums, and
if you miss a beat, it's like, oh, okay, that one's a little bit early, so go back, and then you'd be dropping in. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but you were doing the click tracks for all those breakdown sections, and
well, nothing changes. I still do the click tracks today.
Oh, do you? There you go.
Yeah,
it was a little bit more organic in those days, though.
We do something similar now. So basically, I use Ableton, right. and we will have a click for the band, a click for Ian, and sometimes we'll have periods where there's no clicks, and I'll literally just as I hit like a bass note on the piano, it will start the click playing on the downbeat. So wherever the downbeat falls, that's the click.
This is live, obviously, when you're playing.
Yeah, live. Yeah.
And Ian's on headphones, isn't he? So he's.
Yeah, we're all on in-ears. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Ian wears external headphones, but yeah. So it kind of gives us a little bit of freedom to be more organic, and
If there's a bit of a rap going on in between the tracks and in the breakdown, space out sections and all of that, yeah.
What was the Marquee Studios maintenance guy's name? Can you remember?
Jerry. There was Jerry Browse, and there was Chris.
Chris. It was Chris
Bishop. Yeah.
Chris Bishop. And do you remember calling him up in the middle of the night? I think we were in. This was probably on the Fugazi session. We were in a studio in London. It wasn't the Marquee Studios, and one of our channels had gone down on the desk, and he came and swapped the channel for a channel on a desk in the studio next door. There was the same desk. Right. And they were in the middle of a mix. And he took one of their channels, because we were there like at 3 a.m. or whatever.
I don't remember that.
And he swapped their channel out and gave them the Duff channel, and we had the good one.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember the famous phone call to the Marquee receptionist? Was that at the beginning of Chelsea Monday? I can't think.
No, it's He Knows You Know.
Oh, He Knows You Know. Yeah.
Don't give me your problems.
Oh, that's right. And she's like, whoa. Poor...
Middle of the night, yeah.
Yeah, just wouldn't do that sort of stuff nowadays. It's too... Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so it was great. And then, of course, we got all presented with our nice, shiny gold discs and everything, which was fantastic. I couldn't believe it. I remember coming back because we finished the album, we finished mixing in the middle of the night, and I was completely wiped out, in a good way. Not like on Fugazi, I was sort of wiped out. And I remember just sitting on the edge of my bed. I went home and everything, and just, you know when you're knackered and there has to be a release somewhere. I just remember sitting on the bed and just having a little cry. Just like, oh my God. It's kind of, I was good. I was feeling good, but I was also overwhelmed, because it had been a mad time, I guess you went on tour, and then Fugazi came along, didn't it? Yeah, now that's...
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Oh, my God. I did that whole album for $2,000. I didn't really know how much to charge because I wasn't freelance in those days. This was my first big freelance gig. And it went on for like 6 months or something. How long did it go on for? 4 months? Yeah.
It should have been, I think we had 8 weeks in the Manor.
Yeah.
And then we probably did another 6 weeks in various studios around London, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It kind of just started off, it sort of stumbled, didn't it, right from the beginning, that record. And I don't quite know why.
Well, we weren't ready to record. We
I was going to say the writing process didn't go too well, did it?
We weren't used to trying to write an album in a couple of months. That was the first thing. We'd never done it before. And so when we arrived at the studio, we didn't have the title track written. We didn't have Incubus finished.
I remember there being some days with you just working in the studio, just trying to work stuff out. We weren't actually recording it. There was writing stuff.
Yeah, I can remember coming up with some of the parts there whilst we were meant to be recording.
Do you reckon it's your worst album?
I think it's not as good as other albums, put it like that. I think musically it's a bit disjointed and some of the tracks are quite weak musically. Actually, surprisingly, Fugazi and Incubus, I think, are the two best tracks on the album, even though we were writing them under pressure to get them finished. I think She Chameleon is quite a weak track, and Punja Judy's quite a weak track, but for different reasons. Punja Judy, because Fish insisted it be the single. He'd already told the record company it was going to be the single, even though he'd written no music. And then, so we had to write a single type song, even though it was about domestic abuse, which is not really a good subject for a single. And he also wanted it to be like Bo Diddley, have that Bo Diddley rhythm.
Jack.
So we had these limitations imposed on us, and then She Chameleon, I think we just didn't like the music, and then as a last minute thing, we just completely scrapped it all and started again with something that probably was equally not as good. And do you remember recording the organ at the Angel Studios?
I do. I think you and I are together in my little MGB. We were in Islington, yeah. That's where Angel is.
It's where I live.
Oh, is it? There you go.
Yeah, randomly.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm doing a session there. Yeah, I'm in there on 28th. I'm in Angel doing
Oh my God, that's
streams.
so funny.
I mean, you can always pop by and have a look if you want, Tallulah.
Yeah, actually.
Hey, that'd be really nice. I would come, but I'm not here. I'm in Brazil, I think, yeah.
Like you do.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think what happened. I was always very impressed. I loved Ian's drumming. I thought, one thing, I went back to the remix. I haven't really listened to the final mix that I did all those years ago, because to be honest with you, I was pretty unhappy with it as well, tell you the truth.
Well, you know what? I wanted to say, first of all, I want to apologise for complaining about the end of Fugazi, because at the time I was really unhappy with it. And I think the reason why I think we were generally unhappy with it, because we weren't there. We didn't hear anything you were doing until it was finished and presented to us as, this is it.
This is it.
And not only is this it, but it's gone to be manufactured. There's no...
It was not a good situation.
Well, the end of the track, you had an option really to either just fade the song out or do what Simon and Nick decided to do, which was fade everything out apart from the big vocal chorus and the military snare, which at the time, it was just such a shock. I was just like, oh my God, I hate this. This is awful. Yeah. But when we came to remix it, we could have changed it. And we ended up doing almost pretty much the same thing.
Oh, right. It wasn't a happy end to the album. Anyway, we went into the Manor. I don't remember being at any rehearsals with you and Nick, but I do remember meeting Ian driving up in his brown Mercedes, which I was very impressed by. He called it the staff car, didn't he? Do you remember?
The staff car, yeah.
And Ian was great. I mean, going back and listening to the remix, I've got to say, the drums sound fantastic on that record. The actual recording of the kit and Ian's playing, and they sound amazing, absolutely fantastic. And I was interested.
Well, it was all recorded in that stone room at the Manor, wasn't it?
His tom sounded incredible. I remember it being pretty impressive as we were doing the overdubs and working through the tracks. And the trouble is with being a residential like that, you get lulled into a cocoon-like reality, or your own reality. Time just kind of wanders away, and there's no urgency. The Manor was amazing. It was fantastic. It was the stuff of dreams, but it wasn't conducive necessarily, particularly if you didn't have a game plan organised beforehand, if you weren't absolutely focused on what you needed to achieve each day, which we weren't. You just kind of ended up in this sort of swimming around just trying to get things done,
Was there a lot of procrastinating?
It wasn't like we were avoiding working or anything like that. It was just, instead of just getting on with it, there was a lot of being in the moment and just allowing yourself to kind of be in this amazing surroundings, great studio.
Right,
instead of just getting on with it.
Yeah, there wasn't the sense of urgency that there should have been, considering how much we had to do and how much time we had, I think.
We shouldn't have.
But not that we were being lazy. We were maybe not always focused on getting it done, And the total opposite of that was working with somebody like Chris Neal, who we recorded and mixed an album in 10 weeks. But he would literally go, right, what's the part? Do it. There was no time, which I didn't like. I mean, I wasn't happy about it.
There's a happy medium.
Yeah, he was like, what's your part? What's the sound? Oh, that's great. I'm like, couldn't we just try it?
Yeah.
No, just record it,
Yeah.
Whereas with you and Nick, it was like, oh yeah, let's experiment. Let's look at what the possibilities are before deciding.
Yeah,
what's
that's
the
a more
best,
fun way of doing it.
Which is nice, but also, you've got to end up at the end of each day with stuff on tape, and sometimes I'm not sure what we did. I can't.
Do you remember the ghost experience that I had with the hand? I don't know if you remember, but in the main studio, it was quite a long studio. The drum room was at one end, and there was one of those open plan staircases with the slats with no risers, so you could sort of see through the stairs. And under the stairs there was a Hammond organ, which is obviously the studio's organ, and we were doing a take, and I was playing the organ. I don't know what the song was, and as I was playing, Steve Rothery was the other side. I thought he'd put his hand through the stairs to pick something up, and then I looked, and he was so far away. There's no way it was his hand.
Oh, really?
And I saw a hand, and I stopped playing, and everybody's like, "Why did you stop?" I go, "Oh, well, somebody put their hand through the..."
There's a ghost pad.
And then everybody started making jokes about it being a ghost. I didn't think it was a ghost at the time. I just thought it was somebody's hand.
Oh my God, it was definitely a ghost.
I would think so.
It was the weirdest thing.
You should have got him to control the Leslie. Can you just do the fast slow for me, mate? To be honest with you, I don't remember too much about the Manor. I just remember it being very slow, and also there were, we were doing this 48-track thing, and there were problems with the edits. Do you remember we were getting notes on edits and stuff? And we went up to...
I talked about that because it was the syncing box for the 48-track. It was kind of not primitive, but it was all that was available, wasn't it?
Q-Log, it's called Q-Log.
And trying to sync analog tape machines together is just
a nightmare.
Difficult.
Absolute nightmare. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we thought the bar was a lot higher than it actually was, but kind of got obsessed with stuff. I remember there was an edit in the multi-track of Punch and Judy, and you were doing your Moog line over the top, and every time it went over the edit there was like a bump. You could hear the bump of the edit within the sine wave of the Moog. And then we all went up to Air Studios, do you remember that, to copy the tape?
Yeah, so it kind of got a bit obsessive, didn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
I remember working at Eel Pie. I was trying to come up with a part to play a counterpart to Steve Rothery's An Assassin, and I do like on the PPG. And you said, "Oh, go and lock yourself away in a room and come up with something," because I didn't have anything.
All right.
And there was like an office upstairs or something, and I went up there. It was obviously Pete Townsend's place.
Yeah.
Because I'm messing about, getting a bit bored, trying things, and there was like a big cabinet. I thought, I'll have a look in there. But then there was all these cassette tapes of The Who, like their gigs and stuff. And I was like...
Fantastic. How are you getting on, Mark? I found these cassette tapes.
No, I didn't touch any of it. I just looked, but I was fascinated. But
do you remember him being there at the studio? He turned up a few days.
Yeah, it was a huge control room stroke. A bit like Real World in the sense that you could work in the control room.
Yeah, the control room was pretty big. Not as big as Real World, but no. The desk was kind of here, and then there was a studio area over there, and the famous conservatory was on the right hand side over there. It was all glass and everything. We did some overdubs in there, and we did some in the studio. But when we left the Manor, that was around Christmas, wasn't it? Just after Christmas we finished up at the Manor. And then we went to Psalm East. Yeah. You see, then we were into a whole problem, like everyone sort of staying in different places and commuting in, because I'd have to catch the train in each day. And I don't really remember. I remember Fish doing the jigsaw vocal at Psalm East. And I remember us all sitting in the lounge area there, wondering what the hell was going on. That's when we first met Dave.
Because Dave was working at Psalm, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the assistant at that stage.
Yeah, and then we took him with us when we moved on to the next studio.
Well, then we went to Maison Rouge, and we carried on recording at Maison Rouge. I remember you and I being in the control room at Maison Rouge and just being completely wiped out. I remember you had your keyboard set up in the control room at Maison Rouge, and you and I could sort of sit there looking at each other, like, because when you get that knackered, just actually having to focus and do something, is hard work, For me, the finished result lacked, what's the word, freshness. It didn't sound like it had a spark, because, everyone involved was, completely overwhelmed and exhausted, Chris, do you remember
about the guy with the machete? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to say, do you remember, that was Wessex. Do you remember Chris Carron coming in and doing the ethnic overdubs at Maison Rouge?
Percussion on Assassin, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we actually started mixing at Maison Rouge,
Right.
That's where we did the first mixes. And it must have been a little bit of a strange old time because I was still living at my mum and dad's, I was and Ian came over and had a cup of tea with me to kind of find out how you doing kind of thing. How are we doing? What do you think? I remember him sitting in the kitchen having a cup of tea and what's going on? How's it all going, do you think?
Ian's always been like that. It's great. He's the kind of the dad of the band. He'll be like, he always checks up on everybody, checks you're okay.
He's lovely.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And he'll be the one to come and say, how's it all going? Do you think everything's okay?
What do you reckon? Yeah. He's
like mental health wise or
exactly.
work-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like,
mental health wise. Yeah.
He's the band's HR guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said we need HR. It's Ian. He's the accountant and
he's HR.
So he came over, and then at Maison Rouge we started mixing. Oh my god! And then it went crazy. Then we went to Odyssey. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
being at Odyssey, I slept under the desk at Odyssey. Because
if you're spending money on taxis getting home,
no time to go home.
Well, we're desperately trying to get it finished, and of course it's different studios, different desks, So I can't remember what we mixed at Odyssey, but we were there 2 or 3 days, and then it was Wessex. We went over to Wessex, which is now North London. Odyssey is West End. This is North London. So we were in the big SSL room at Wessex, the nice room, mixing there. And that was when the machete moment happened, I think I was sitting mixing or trying to mix, and I wasn't involved in it. There was some confrontation out in the hallway in the reception area with a bloke and a machete, and Nick came back in and I can't be sure exactly what was said, but he said, there's a big problem. The bloke says he's booked the studio and he's got a machete, and is that okay?
Didn't he have an orchestra session booked or something?
I
think it was like a bunch of musicians anyway that he obviously was paying.
Yeah, and Nick had kind of refused to leave the studio. There's another little studio at Wessex which has got a tiny, I think it was a Calrec desk. Not a nice SSL or anything that you normally mix on, like a little, nicer than a home studio desk, but still completely manual, this, that and the other. And I mixed the last part of the album on that. We had to go next door to the production room. There was one or two of the tracks I had to kind of do in that little back room.
Manually.
It was a bit of a weird one, but yeah, Dave Meagan was hospitalised out of Maison Rouge, wasn't he? He ended up in hospital.
Was he?
Yeah. He didn't come to Wessex with us.
Because we had that period where it was me and Steve Rothery were at Abbey Road with Tony Platt mixing Incubus. I used the opportunity to remove some of the backing vocals that I didn't like because Fish wasn't there.
The girly backing vocals, were they?
Yeah, it was a girl called Linda Pike. I don't even think I even met her.
I don't even remember recording her, to tell you the truth. I don't know when that was done.
Well, you did.
Did I? I don't remember that. It was terrible, isn't it? I don't know. I don't remember that at all. Did she come into Maison Rouge? Where was that?
I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember thinking that we didn't really like them very much. And Carl Wayne came and sang on Fugazi.
Yeah.
Which was nice. He was a good singer, wasn't he?
He was great. I'd done something with Nick, with Carl, I think in between. We'd done an album with Adrian Lee. Do you know Adrian Lee? Keyboard player?
Adrian Lee was the keyboard player on Toyah, wasn't he?
Toyah and Mike and the Mechanics, yeah. We were doing an album with him, and Carl came in and sang on that, yeah. So that's probably... And I think Nick knew him from old Decca days or something like that,
And you just reminded me mentioning Adrian Lee. When we were working on Script, this was at the Marquee, Nick was trying to get me to get a particular keyboard sound out of the Jupiter 8, which was kind of like a oboe, orny sort of sound.
Right.
And it was a sound that Adrian had got. Yeah. And he was like, you need to get this sound. And you dug out the multi-tracks from this Toyah album to play me the sound.
Oh, did you?
I can't. Yeah. And I was like, I couldn't get it exactly the same, but it was, he obviously had it in his head that, this sample would be great for this part.
We've got to do that.
Yeah, we've got to do that. And this is the sort of thing that we did. So we probably spent, half a day.
Listening to
this particular sound, and nobody would know. Yeah. Nobody would know the difference.
No. All fairly intense. And actually, I don't remember as much as I thought I did when I come back. But Wessex ended up, and then it was kind of over. But Maison Rouge was one of the major memories I have of being in Maison Rouge and you being incredibly tired. I remember trying to, like I said, you're sort of sitting there, both each of us looking at each other. It's like, okay, what should we do? Let's just sit here.
And we used to go home at the end of the night as well, which is crazy because it was like all the way back to Aylesbury. Yeah. No wonder we were tired.
Yeah, we were knackered.
Especially, and I had 2 young kids at home.
Oh, did you?
And there was one young kid at that time. It would have been.
Yeah, but that's not easy. It's a 5 o'clock start with a baby, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wrote about this in the book. I remember one time coming home, getting undressed again to bed, and Susie waking up and thinking I was just getting up. Yeah. So rather than tell her that I had literally just walked through the door, I kind of reversed from taking my trousers off to putting them back on again.
Yeah, and then you pretended you'd been there all night. Yeah,
yeah, and then just got dressed. And then went through the day with no sleep at all.
Yeah. I remember,
oh, my God.
There was a bit of a fallout after that. I remember getting a phone call maybe from John Arneson or something like that. And, it was just... Yeah, I mean, it was just a shame because I think the album potentially could have been really great. But I just think that the schedule worked against us, to tell you the truth. It was not conducive to, it just didn't have that freshness that you need, when you're finishing up an album.
We certainly had it with Script. I thought it was.
It's a good dinner party story, that's for sure.
And as you said, Ian's playing on that album was outstanding. I think
Ian's fantastic. I loved recording you. Well, you were all great. I loved recording all of you, and I'm working with all of you. But Mick is a mate, and I love Mick, and he's fantastic, and he's a lovely bloke, and this, that, and the other. But it's clear that Ian is in a different league. I don't think anyone's got any doubts about that. And
you worked with Mick afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah, I've done several mixes of some arena stuff for him. Some of it's good, we like.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I was impressed that he managed to. I mean, he had about 10 years where he didn't play, did he? And then,
no, he wasn't.
And I think it was Clive Nolan that persuaded him to start playing again?
They got together, and I met up with Mick backstage at one of your gigs, and he said, I'm starting up this project with my mate Clive, we should really talk to you about, it'd be great to get you involved, and that was the start of, or maybe they'd already done one album, because I mixed the second album for them and then did all bits and pieces, so yeah, he's kind of got in touch, and they're nice guys, they're great. John Mitchell, John Mitchell, and
John Mitchell, he's a great guy.
I worked on the Keno album with him. I mixed all of that, and with Pete on Keno. Mm-hmm. So I think I've worked on 3 or 4 arena things over the years. Yeah, but Mick's great. He's totally happening. But we know Ian is in a little bit of a different league. Sort of drumming wise, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Have you got any questions, Tallulah? Before you?
No, I think
these 2 old men disappear into our.
Well, we haven't talked about reel to reel. Do you want to talk about reel to reel? Because I need to ask a couple of questions about that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, reel to reel. Yeah.
A reel to reel.
So we did a live album, Tallulah, after Fugazi, and recorded half of it in Montreal. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah, I was very excited.
Is that why it was called reel to reel?
It was called reel to reel as a play on words, as in real life, to reel as in a reel of tape. Yeah.
Reel to reel. Yeah.
Or in Montreal.
No, I haven't thought about that. Yeah. Reel to reel.
But that was again. That was because John Arneson didn't really, but it was talking about him managing me. After Fugazi and everything. Of course, then you asked me to do the reel to reel thing, and that was very exciting for me because that's the first time I went to America. I came and recorded you at the Spectrum, Do you remember there was a little studio at the back? Do you remember all of that? And we recorded the gig.
They had some tie lines going into the stage, didn't they?
That's right.
That was kind of the idea. Yeah.
We recorded the concert, which all went fine, and then you were going to go on and do 2 or 3 dates, ending up in New York about a week later. You played in Syracuse. Is it Syracuse?
Yeah.
And somewhere else.
A chance in Syracuse.
Yeah. And then you went down and you played in New York. And I flew from Montreal and had a few days in New York and met up with you in New York. And I can't remember where did you play in New York? I can remember being at the club. And
probably the Ritz.
Yeah, I think it was probably the Ritz. I think it may have been. I remember there was a huge balcony around it. Maybe that was
the Ritz.
Yeah, we all hooked up when you came down, and then of course we did a little bit of post work to the album at Rick Parfitt's. Do you remember that?
Oh, that was a bit sad, wasn't it? Because it was his wife, Mary. What was her name?
Marietta. Yeah, Marietta or Mary.
Marietta.
Yeah.
They'd split up. He'd moved out, and she was basically just using the studio to try and get some income, I suppose. Yeah. The tragedy was their 2-year-old son had drowned in their swimming pool. That had happened a year or 2 before, so
it was a bit weird.
It wasn't a fun place to be. Yeah.
Did we stay there?
I think we just used the studio because the studio was joined to the house, wasn't it? It was part of the house.
Yeah. And
so that was where we mixed reel to reel, was it?
No. We overdubbed some stuff because some of the things that had been recorded, I think some of your synths were in mono when they should have been in stereo, and we didn't have proper split out of all the synths, so some of the synths you replayed, so we had nice wide sounding keyboards.
Right. There was a bit of repair work went on.
A little bit, not too much, there was some vocal bits and pieces we did, and the keyboard stuff, from what I remember, was done for a technical reason rather than a performance reason. How many were we there? Like 4 or 5 days at Rick, so it's something like that.
It wasn't long. Yeah.
And then we mixed at the Marquee.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So you got a better memory of these things than I had.
There's some pictures. Julian, you remember your mate Julian who used to take pictures?
Julian Cole.
Yeah.
I'd contacted him not so long ago, actually, when I was doing the book.
Yeah.
To try and see if he had any pictures. And he said they all went missing. They all...
Really?
He either gave them to somebody to borrow, or they were stolen or destroyed. I can't remember. But yeah, he didn't have any.
Oh, right.
They were all gone.
Because it's not like nowadays where everyone's got a phone and you just take 100 pictures and it doesn't matter. It was all film and you had to kind of think about it because it was expensive. To.
Yeah, he was our official photographer for a couple of the years, wasn't he? That was probably why he was there. Yeah.
Well, there's a picture in Marquee mixing with John Arneson and me and Steve sitting at the So Reel to Reel was good, and I remember going and getting the gold disc and everything. I remember meeting up with you at Hammersmith, and we were all presented with gold discs for that. And then there was a party afterwards at a restaurant. Yeah.
What happened at the party? Anything memorable?
Yeah. We all got off our faces on tea and biscuits, Yeah. But the funny thing is...
Tallulah. Simon was so clean living.
Someone had to be.
Someone had to be, yeah. Yeah, he barely touched any alcohol, never mind anything else.
Well, there was a lot of that flowing around. In actual fact, there's a couple of stories about that.
Do you remember the guy that used to supply? Stuart, they called him.
Stuart. Well, here's the story about Stuart. He was the drug dealer.
He had a big Range Rover.
I've heard about
massive American.
Did he have a Range Rover? A big American Jeep, that was it, wasn't it?
Big American Jeep. Huge. I mean, completely conspicuous, And he'd drive this thing down the tiny little mews and park it right in the middle. And come in and knock on the door. And, Stuart, Nick would say, Stuart, I've got those cassettes for you around the back. The cassettes around the back. And then they disappear. And then years later, I was in a pub in Frensham near Farnham. And I look over in the corner. It's like, hang on a minute, it's Stuart. and
did you talk to him?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I said, hello, Stuart. Do you remember me? And he goes, well, yeah, I think I do. And I said, from A Different Life, Stuart. Marquee Studios. Do you remember coming to the Marquee Studios? And he goes, oh yeah, I've left all of that behind. Well, that's what he told me. So but Reel to Reel was pretty painless from what I remember, and it did pretty well, didn't it? It was like a top 10 record.
It did. It kind of saved us really because by the time we got to the end of Fugazi, you know, we were in a hole with EMI for quite a bit of money. Yeah. We'd spent quite a lot. We clearly weren't, looking at the money, and I don't think anybody was. You know, it was like, oh, we're making art here. We don't worry about money. You know.
Yeah. All of a sudden. Yeah.
And I think they were planning to drop us. And I think it was John, actually, to give credit, had the idea of doing a
quick live
album. Do a live album, put it out, a budget live album.
Yeah.
So we probably mixed it pretty quickly and kept the costs down. And the idea was to sell it for like half the price of a normal album. Yeah. But it broke through in Europe in a few places. And so it was kind of like, okay, we'll give him another spin, and then of course we then made Misplaced Childhood. So
that's right.
That's coming up, isn't it? Because I've not heard about that yet.
John and I were in touch. I went over to John's offices, and he said, there's another album coming up, and briefly I was in the frame to be involved with that. I came over to Paris and saw a gig there where you were actually performing part of Misplaced Childhood, and I remember
we did tour with it.
Yeah. Before you recorded it, this one.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the marquee with Fish during the reel-to-reel sessions, and him singing me some of the lyrics that he'd written for the next record. So that there was a brief period where I hoped to be involved with the next record. I think you made the right choice, to tell you the truth, obviously, but that didn't come together. But I remember going out to Paris and seeing you in Paris, but then EMI picked up with me, and they actually, I was actually almost signed to EMI at one stage as a kind of in-house guy, and they were feeding me loads of projects. So the next project I did was a big Saxon record out in Munich, and I was out there. We lived, again, it was like rock and roll excess, mid-80s. We were in the Munich Hilton for about 9 weeks, and I remember waking up in the hotel and switching on. There was only like 2 channels in those days that you could actually watch anything English. And there was a music channel, and on came Kaylee, the video for Kaylee. And it was a bit of a wrench for me, to be honest with you. It was like, it's okay. Everyone's moved on. Because, I'd felt, I don't know how to put it really. I mean, obviously I was doing a job and this, that and the other, but it felt very, very important to me, so.
I don't think it was a reflection on you. I think it was just, you make a couple of albums with a producer. I mean, that's kind of what we've done through our careers, really. Often recently when we've been working with Mike Hunter for the last 20 years. But
he's a good guy from all accounts. Yeah. I've never met Mike, but So, this has been amazing. It's been so great, and actually,
we'll have to get you on again.
This has been great and lovely to meet you, Tallulah.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, and great to hear all the stories.
I tried to get Mick on, actually. Mick pointed that he said he'd think about it, and then finally decided he didn't want to do it because Diz came on, and I found it a bit uncomfortable. Well, I found it very uncomfortable at times because we fired it. It didn't pull the emotional punches. But
we talk about that a lot on this podcast. The problem with being in a band, you're navigating friendship and work, and it's like one of those relationships that you don't really emulate in the real world of work. Yeah,
because there's so much. Emotion and sensitivity involved in actually creating music with each other. It becomes much more than
personal thing.
A paper pushing.
It's like you're saying, we're like a part of a gang when you're working together like that. It's pretty intense, and you feel it's pretty special. So when it comes to an end, it's kind of that's not
end of a chapter,
not what you wanted.
End of an era. No, it's I mean, I know I've said it several times, but that whole period is probably the most important period of my career to date. And
that's how I feel about it too. Those early years where everything's new, everything's for the first time, and all that.
Just fantastic and super exciting. I remember, like I said, I remember getting the gold disc and like sticking it up on the wall in my bedroom at my mum and dad's house. It's just like, okay, I'm legitimate.
Right, yeah. Still haven't got my own place, but I've got a gold disc.
Exactly, yes. My mum's still doing my ironing.
That's the music business for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. This has been fantastic.
I can't believe you said you only got paid $2,000 for Fugazi. Where did all the money go? Well, on the studios, probably.
Well, I didn't really know what to sort of charge, I mean, and I don't know, you would have thought Nick would have looked after me a little bit bit more. But and of course, we didn't know it was going to go on for like 4 months or something.
No, that's true.
But yeah, it didn't really bother me at the time. It was kind of like, oh, I'm doing it for that, and that's what it is. I mean, now it'd be like,
you're not thinking about the money at that stage, for sure.
Not quite yet. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Simon, for coming on.
Great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And it was a good chat.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Have to do
really, really good to see you again.
Yeah, and you, my old native. Do say hello to everyone for me.
Well, if you got this far, you must be really enjoying the podcast, or you fell asleep. Either way, I just want to give a shout out to our most recent subscribers: David Morris, Ewan, Melissa Bender, Mike Riccici, Mike Hudson, Death's granddaughter, sounds like a bag of laughs, and Martin Dixie. Thanks very much. And if you'd like to get a shout out on the podcast, amongst other things such as some unreleased music from me, please subscribe too over at Patreon/Prog and Progeny. And if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, give us a like and a subscribe. It doesn't cost anything and will help us reach more people. And it boosts our self-esteem dramatically. Thank you very much. See you next time.